Hello and welcome to the big picture. After years of going back and forth and much political opposition, a consensus was finally reached to pass the Constitutional Amendment Bill to enable legislations on goods and services tax. The bill, which was passed in Rajya Sabha yesterday, almost unanimously except for the AIDMK walking out, heralds the first step towards one of the biggest tax reform measures in independent India. However, it is just the first step towards achieving that very significant goal. What is the way ahead now? What are the processes and steps to be taken legislatively, legally, and politically, and also technologically before the common market concept behind the GST becomes a reality? What are the pitfalls which can delay the implementation? We will discuss all this today with Nitin Desai, former Chief Economic Advisor, Government of India, Mohan Guruswamy, Senior Economist, PDT Achary, former Secretary General Lok Sabha, and N.R. Bhanumurthy, Member, National Institute of Public Finance and Policy. Welcome to all of you. Mohan, how much is in the control of the central government now? The next steps which has to be taken. How much of it is under the control of the central government?
Well, it's up to the central government now to get it past the Lok Sabha. The two laws have to be enacted, and then it will go to the states for ratification. I don't see a problem. But this is a process which will take time. I think the deadline of...
Sorry, that's the question which I asked. This so many processes which are there, how much of it is under the control of the central government, which it can control and ensure that it get hastened up?
Well, there seems to be a consensus right now that the bill is good and the law is good and that it is going to be to the benefit of the whole country and to all of us. So, I think it should go through, but, we'll have to look at the fine print in the laws which will come, and in the fine print the bureaucrats will insert. There might be problems on that. Already Chidambaram has flagged off one or two issues, and Achary has flagged off, a couple of issues. And the BJP's ally, the Shiv Sena, has vehemently objected to the loss of octroi in Bombay. And, they all depend on the octroi. The party depends on it because that's its power base. So there are all these problems are going to crop up, and but I think there is a consensus to overcome all this, and it will go through.
I'll come to you. Okay. Yes, Mr.
Yeah, basically, remember that now it has to go back to the Lok Sabha, where the BJP has a clear majority.
Yes.
Second, about 15 states have to approve. 13 states are BJP ruled. Hopefully, they will put it through. Maybe there'll be a little jada in Maharashtra. And it's a question of finding at least 2 other states, but non-BJP states, to approve, and then it should be through. So as far as the immediate business of getting it in place by April 2017, I think it's doable.
And also there are some kind of urgency that states are also showing up in clearing this bill in the legislative assemblies.
You think that the urgency is being shown without understanding the complications which can come up? Because a lot of people are flagging the complications which are going to come up. No. For instance, one other thing is inflation which is going to happen. Second is people are talking about job losses, especially in the unorganized sector. All these things you think have not been adequately understood or discussed or debated?
No, I think at the moment what the states are looking at is they should not be losing revenues at any cost.
Right.
I think they are not
that is the primary concern.
Yeah, they are not really bothering about the inflation at the moment. Those things will come later. That all depends on the kind of the rate that they are going to fix in the bill. So I think those has to be worked out before we implement from the April 1st, 2017. I think they are the contentious issues. I think what we have seen yesterday, it's just a beginning of the rollout of GST from the next year. There are many more things that needs to be done, particularly the rate itself.
The constitution of the GST Council, which will happen only after the states have passed all the bills.
Yes.
50% of the states have passed the bills. It will come back to the president. The president ratifies it, and then the GST Council is formed.
Yes.
What is the process of formation of GST Council, and how will it work?
No, well, I think as you rightly point out, once the 16 states and union territory passes this bill in their legislative assemblies, it comes back to the president and the president clears it. Then after that, once it is ratified, then I think Mr. Achary will be able to tell much better on this. Then the GST Council will be formed, and then they negotiate on the rate both at the center and the state together.
Mr. Achary, has there been any precedent of this kind in the past, which we can go back to find out how this whole process will be taken up?
See, this is a constitutional amendment which needs to be ratified by 50% of the states. And after the bill is ratified by 50% of the states, it will go to the president and the president will give his assent. It's a normal process. In many of the constitutional amendments, we have seen that. But in this particular case, here, actually what has happened is that a lot of time has been taken. There was a lot of disruption in the House, particularly in the Rajya Sabha, and it was delayed. Now, I would say on this occasion that normally we say that disruption of parliament is a very bad thing. We all deprecate it. But here is a case where after this disruption for a long time, the bill has come in a much better shape.
Much better shape and with a consensus.
It has achieved a consensus which was eluding it earlier. And that is why perhaps there was disruption. So at least once it has been proved that the disruption is also beneficial in the ultimate analysis.
Okay.
In fact, a very good example of this is that one bad idea from the BJP side, which was a 1% levy by the manufacturing state, is gone.
Yes.
And one bad idea from the Congress side, which is a constitutional limit on the
capping.
So our rambunctious democracy has at least ensured that two bad ideas got dropped.
Has got dropped. But Mr. Achary, my question was this. GST Council, has there been any precedent in the past where this kind of a council has to be set up? And the legislative process which entails after that?
No. There was, in fact, no constitutional amendment bill which has been passed in the past, did not contain this kind of a setup. This is a new setup, which is specific to this GST bill. And where I think in this council, the finance ministers of the states and the union finance minister and all that, they are represented on this. So it's a platform, which will address issues concerning this. But you raised a question about the concern of the states.
Right.
With regard to loss of revenues and things like that. I fully agree with you that there are concerns, but then you look at the ADMK party which walked out.
Which has walked out.
Precisely on this ground that they will lose revenue. So these concerns are there, but still.
Are there, and which will come up at a later stage. Mohan, this whole concept of a GST council sitting and formulating the actual bills, the central GST, the state GST, and the interstate GST, with 3 bills have to be passed. Has there been any such precedents in the past, and of this kind of a council formulating, drafting a bill?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Mr. Acharya probably would have a better idea on this.
Yeah, he
but
says
I don't
that
think so.
Yeah.
And I think this is where the problems will start coming in. When you have so many elements involved, people will disagree and differ. And I was a little concerned about some of the caveats left behind by Mr. Chidambaram and Yeshuri, who said, well, this is not the best, the drafting is not good. And so they've given themselves room to raise questions which might delay the process. And there's no urgency in India on anything. This idea has been tossed around for 17 years now. It first came as VAT, Sen VAT, and it took various avatars. And then Mr. Modi was vehemently was opposed to it for 6 years. He stalled it. He said, no, it can't happen. And suddenly he had a change of heart after he became Prime Minister. And it's pretty much the same bill. Nothing really significantly has changed since then, except for a few things here and there. But the idea of GST has just now got acceptance that, where the states will cede some of their sovereignty, the centre will cede some of its powers, annual powers, to make laws, make taxes, discretionary.
How complicated? How complicated are those going to be? First of all, to decide that what are the goods and services which has to come into the ambit of this central law, then the state laws, then this interstate laws.
I think the good thing is that they're excluded.
One
There
second.
is no such thing. They don't have to negotiate the certain products which have been kept out, right? That's fine. So that's already decided. That's why the whole point of this is that you don't go product by product. The whole point of a GST is, you see, I sat in the finance ministry. One of our great headaches was people coming and lobbying, "Hamara tax rate itna bada do, uska itna kam kar do," type of thing. That sort of thing now goes, because the whole point of a general, remember the word general, sales tax is you do not get into commodity specifics. The issue will be the rate at the center, the states, and that there will be some argument. So, second, Mr. Achary will correct me, but I don't think the council has to debate the law. They have to debate the rate.
Yeah, that's
The law is there. Law is being decided by Parliament.
I was saying,
by
till
Parliament, so
Nitin
that's
interrupted
end of
me.
it.
I was saying that there were two articles which are exempted. One is liquor and one is petroleum products. They will be taken out. The rest all come in the ambit of the GST. So there's no issue there at all on this.
So there are no ambiguities as far as that is concerned.
No.
No, absolutely none.
Except
None.
liquor and petroleum.
No, there's no ambiguity there.
At all.
There's absolutely clear liquor and petroleum will not right now be in the GST. So it is very important to stress this point, that the great advantage of the GST is it gets rid of
But,
this business of, I pay 5% on this, 7% on that, 10% on that, 15%.
But Girish, bulk of the state's income comes from these two items, petroleum and
Exactly,
liquor.
and that's
So,
exactly why they were not.
But 90% of the industry is out of that, So, it makes life better for producers of goods and services. Generally, should make life better.
Bhanumurthy, if these two items, the liquor and petroleum, are exempted and kept out of this GST, so how does the tax system work as far as collecting tax from these two sources are concerned?
Well,
Because we are being told that there needs to be a whole overall of the tax administration system itself.
Right. No, at the moment, as everybody agreed that the kind of bill that's passed yesterday is not a perfect bill. It's not a perfect GST. There are
No,
some
it is
issues.
it's just enabling legislation.
Yeah, but it is actually, it's enabling legislation, and also it has made almost one market of the whole country in a sense. I mean, except for a couple of items. Even there, some of the states are gone for, liquor ban, Some of the states are already done, like Gujarat, and now Bihar has already done. There are talks about banning in other states also. In that sense, it may not be a problem across the country. But otherwise, I think the petrol is, at the moment, is kept outside the GST. Going forward, in my view is that it will come under the GST ambit
At some
itself.
point of
Yes,
time or the
yes.
other.
Yeah. And I think the real challenge is, I think the rate will be a challenge. And there will
Fixing a rate will be a
there
challenge.
will be a challenge. But there is now some agreement of
About
the
18% seems to be there.
No, more than the fixing the rate, my view is that I think the challenge would be on the compensation of the losses at the state level.
But they have agreed that 100% compensation
Yes,
should
but
be done for 5 years.
how do you decide
calculate
which
it?
state is going to get how much compensation? The whole problem between this 15.5 and 26 or 27 number is on the differences in the revenue base. Each state will come out with a different revenue base for the respective years.
There will be a lot of disputes.
so
there'll be some problems on this. My guess
And
is
the compensation, we are going to have
even
a
when
problem.
VAT was being implemented, the same problem happened.
yeah.
The states were, that they had to be compensated. First they said 50%, 100% first year, 75%, 50%.
You're also the-
But now
That
they are
problem
saying
is
that
not
100% for 5
But,
years.
but
Girish,
the
that
center
problem
may
is
not
not
have that much money to compensate for the
That is another problem.
notional losses the states are going to
Absolutely.
suffer.
Yeah.
You see, basically, I think the two major areas that they will need to focus on. One is what we just mentioned. They will have to have a reasonably systematic process for deciding on this compensation. It can't be just a negotiation between each state and the central ministry.
So there has to be some parameters.
Some formula should be there.
some
Yeah,
process,
formula-
some process.
Yeah,
and that formula has not been evolved so
I
far.
mean, if I may
That's-
suggest, one possibility is the finance commission type process. But the second one, which is going to be perhaps the greatest challenge, is integrating all these diverse tax administrations.
Right.
And incidentally, the problem is not just at the government end. The problem is also at the SSE end.
Exactly.
Because most people have accounting systems built on, on sales tax.
Many people
here.
don't have accounting system at all.
No, they have, but I mean,
No, the small traders, for instance.
that's right. But the bigger guys who have also have accounting systems built on the old tax structure, and there's a lot of work at the corporate level in redesigning these. And then
That's good
the
for
big
GDP.
change is services. Today, we had been including services bit by bit in this. But now, basically, what GST says is, if there is a sale transaction, there has to be a tax, period. End of story. That the minute I provide you with a service,
So are you trying to say that, there'll be no scope for avoidance of tax?
well, there's always scope for
There's
avoidance
always
of tax. There's never, but there is no such thing as somebody being outside the tax rate, theoretically. There are, I'm sure there are exemptions for people below a certain. You can't go and put a tax
That 1.5 crore limit is being talked about.
on your cobbler in the street who charges you for repairing your shoe. It will be idiotic, because the cost of collection would be.
lakhs of services.
So they're bound to be.
There is avoidance and evasion. Both
That's right.
Yeah.
Both
So there
things are
has to be some reasonable, because you cannot start levying taxes on where the cost of collection far exceeds what you get.
Exactly.
You know?
Well, Mr. Achary, the other question which may crop up, which was hinted at during the debate yesterday, was about the GST bills when it finally comes up before the House, especially whether it's going to be a money bill or a finance bill.
Well, yesterday, Mr. Chidambaram made a request, or rather he wanted an assurance from the government
Exactly.
that the bill on GST should not be a money bill, it should be a financial bill.
Why? Why that demand?
That the demand, is because if it is a money bill, then Rajya Sabha cannot vote on it. That is it. Rajya Sabha cannot vote on this.
But there
If
will
it's
be
a
some
money
discussion.
bill. They can discuss it, but they will return the money, the bill.
Okay.
Maybe with some recommendations, but those recommendations may be accepted or may not be accepted by the Lok Sabha. It depends on the Lok Sabha. Otherwise, Rajya Sabha as a house doesn't have the power to either vote against the bill or vote for the bill. They won't vote at all. So that is the position. That is
As far as
why.
the money bill is concerned.
That is why he says money bill. It should not be a money bill, but he says it can be. It's a financial bill.
It's a financial bill.
Financial bill means it may not be introduced in the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, but the Rajya Sabha has the
to.
right to vote on that bill. So that is the difference.
Has to pass it
Yes, yes. It has
or
to pass
reject
it.
it, either way.
Yeah. So that power is there. That power is vested in the Rajya Sabha. But in the case of money bill, Rajya Sabha doesn't have that power. That is why he is raising this question. Well, one has to see what kind of bill they are bringing. So far as the financial bill is concerned, it contains those items which are listed in Article 110 relating to the money bill, plus something.
Okay.
Can I ask one?
Yes.
simple- If a bill contains the tax rate, can it be a finance bill or can it be a money bill?
It has to be a money bill. Only that. If it contains only the tax rate,
Okay.
if it contains only the tax rate and nothing else, then it is a money bill. Because money bill is a very strict kind of concept. There, except this tax rate and taxation and other related things, no other thing should be included in the bill.
Hence, there is a apprehension in the Congress.
So
that
there,
it will
Mohan, this itself could become a bone of contention.
Of
It
course,
can.
it will become a bone of contention because, politics will have to go on as usual.
Exactly.
Now, you have to show that the ruling party is not in control of things, is not able to enforce, not able to progress with reforms, whatever reforms.
No, but after all this consensus which has been worked out, you think the opposition parties can afford that?
But is there any give and take? You see, it was not really a consensus. The Congress party got isolated into a small minority. It would have been passed in the Rajya Sabha in any case. So they made a virtue out of necessity. Well, everybody else had really left.
No, that is the point I'm making.
Okay.
Being
So,
that, do you expect them to still raise opposition to,
I think they will create problems. It is because, unfortunately, in India, the opposition sees its role as one of creating problems, and the BJP has not been particularly cooperative when it was in the opposition and when it was ruling certain states. So I think even this delay of a year and a half in the Rajya Sabha was basically the BJP being hoshed in its own petard by the Congress, who didn't really have any real objections to it, but they were finding things to object about. So I think, we'll have to expect some trouble, and I think this attempt at conciliation to talk to the opposition with this gesture gently made of, going and meeting Manmohan Singh and Chidambaram, and I think the Prime Minister will have to start doing some diplomacy of his own within the country and reach out to the states because you have elections coming on in several states. You might have a sudden change in picture by the middle of next year.
Absolutely.
Who knows what's going to happen in Punjab? Who knows what's going to happen in Goa? Who knows what's going to happen in
This is one thing you have to watch out for.
in Gujarat? Who knows what will happen everywhere? So the apple cart could get upset. So I think he will have to create a consensus, a conciliatory mood, and do it. Get off.
No,
his
but
high
the
horse.
question, what is the when is because they're talking of rolling out this entire thing in 2017, April 2017. You think that from now to April 2017, whatever time is left now, you think they'll be able to push all these things through?
I don't think it's going to happen. I think they'll need a longer time than that. So therefore, he'll have to work extremely hard. We'll have to show some diplomatic skills domestically to get it through.
I think he'll have to show some diplomatic skills in his own party. But the fact is that today, at the ground level, the people who would probably consider themselves adversely affected, particularly by the
Who are these people who will be adversely affected?
The small traders.
The small traders.
The
small traders are the BJP.
So do not be surprised.
parties.
Be surprised if there is a certain broad consensus in delaying implementation till after the crucial elections of next year.
Apart from that, just like when you have you can't supply electricity at 220 volts and it jumps from 150 to 280, you have a big industry making stabilizers. It really is a testimony to our inefficiency. So also we have this huge army of sales tax consultants, chartered accountants, these retired officers of these tax department. This is a huge industry. So, those services will also get affected. So there'll be a lot of rearguard action going on. A lot of these guys are very influential, very extremely networked. So all these problems will take place. And so I think, you have to manage this very adroitly at this time, because apart from that, you see, sales tax, leakage of sales tax at the state level is a huge source of corruption.
Absolutely.
And that goes with this. You have a lot of people upset about that also. So, you got to deal with that also.
What about the excise inspectors? The excise inspectors.
Excise, octroi,
Everybody.
So then, but those are not the people.
A huge industry has.
Yeah, but I would argue those are not the people who will cause the political disruption. The political disruption, we already got some hints of this in the parliament debate.
Right.
Where you got some hints of this, where people who were probably articulating the views of the trader class were making some noises, and remember, a lot of them were from the ruling party, and who have been voicing.
Because the ruling party's base has been the small traders for a long time.
As I said, that do not be surprised if, because of these problems, there is a certain willingness to postpone till after the election.
Bhanumurthy, small traders' problems. Can you just explain what is this which is going to create problems for them?
Well, they will be brought into the tax net. I think since
because most of them are not in the tax net now.
At the moment, I guess
seems to be the biggest problem.
Basically, from the wholesaler to the retailer, there is a huge number 2 trail.
Right.
And that disappears. You see, in the complexity of the accounting and in the huge volume of data, you don't really get to pick that stuff. Now, all that discretion is gone. You just have to collect tax.
There is also the discretion of the consumer also would go now.
That is the
because
that's the point.
if you previously, at the moment we say that if you don't want to take bill, we'll be paying you less.
Exactly.
Even that option might be going off.
No, because most of the consumers who go to the small shops, the small traders, we don't get bill. We don't ask for a bill.
Not only small
and every
trade,
time you ask for a
happy
bill,
without a bill.
Yeah, every time you ask, they'll say that you'll have to pay some 10% more. Or
not
15%.
only small trade, even go to the gold jewelry shops,
Exactly.
big traders,
Yes.
they are willing to give you without bill. Where you don't need to pay some of the taxes.
No, but now tell me,
And you have to pay in cash.
if now you're with the GST, they'll be forced to give a bill. Is that what is
Once
that
you are
what's
part of the chain,
because
supply
he can't
chain.
get his own return
Tax
on
credit.
what he has paid.
Tax credit.
That is, suppose I, as a small trader, I've got something from a wholesaler and I paid tax on what I got from the wholesaler. Then I will not get my
Tax credit. You don't get it
unless I'm also paying tax.
So isn't this a little complicated? You think that small traders will be able to, understand and work this system?
No, it will take some time. I mean, all the concerns
And
are.
there'll have to be a limit.
In my guess is that it's more of a teething issues. Maybe 2-3 years down the line, all those things will go off. But my own worry
What will
is
happen in these 2-3 years?
Little
in terms of the network, technology, adaptation by the traders as well as consumers, will all take some
ये
time.
हिंदुस्तान है,
Yeah.
we'll muddle through.
But I don't have that
think-
problem.
I think-
I think all those things can be sorted out. My problem is only on the compensation and the revenue base, which is going to be the long-term problem for the GST implementation.
Yes, Mohan.
I think the states will typically exaggerate the revenue loss, or and they will come to negotiate with this council, and it will become political demands. One party will say you actually need to collect 50,000 crores, the other party will say no, it's 70,000 crores, and then it becomes a competitive issue. All these things will arise. Now, how they manage that is to be seen. We don't know. We haven't experienced this before.
Can I ask Bhanu a question?
But whenever you have a flood, there's a difference in how much of money the state claims and how much the state is willing to give.
Every natural calamity actually.
Bhanu, is it possible for as an economist and as somebody involved in these types of numbers games, is it possible to devise a process by which this is not politicized, but let us say there is a somewhat independent commission which makes an assessment?
Yes, sir. Ultimately, we may have to go in that, as you rightly pointed in the beginning, we may have to have a formula the way Finance Commission does for the devolution. But for that, I think we need to have some experience down the line. We don't have, the GST is a new setup altogether.
Completely new.
We may have to wait for a couple of
The
years.
Finance Commission is a very important model. Remember this, you now had so many finance commissions and there has not been a serious controversy on a single
on
one of
single
them.
thing. So that kind of a model, but this is something which is a temporary thing. It is not Finance Commission.
5 years.
It will
5
take
years. It is. Remember, the commitment is to compensate for 5 years.
for 5 years. Yes, Mohan.
No, you see, this tendency to exaggerate the losses is going to be there, and you've got to deal with it. You see, you can't. Politics will be politics.
One big problem which everybody is talking about. Nobody actually mentioned this in the debate yesterday, but I'm sure it's going to come up later. But we have seen it. We are reading it in the media. The fear of job losses. Why is that job losses and inflation? These are two issues which are being talked about. Why will that happen?
I don't see any job losses in manufacturing or services coming,
No, they're
except for this community of
job losses
facilitators.
in the unorganized sector.
No, I don't see why it will happen. I can't see why it will happen. There's
they'll be gaining in the
no
organized
rationale,
sector.
there's no logic behind that fear, but it's just a fear being stoked that, if you're opposed to the bill, you say there'll be job losses. And we won't know
And
if there are job
inflation.
losses till the bill actually becomes.
What about inflation?
I don't think, why should it contribute to inflation? If prices come down, if the incidence of taxes comes
Initially,
down, prices
Mr.
come down.
Desai, it said initially there'll be inflation.
I think
No,
if it is
see,
going to be efficient, if it's going to give people lower prices, if it's going to add to GDP, you should give it a try.
Yeah, let me say this. Yes, there may be some temporary effect because of services being included, which are today not. But on manufacturing, there probably will not be such a thing. Remember, let me see the payoff.
Yes.
Today, if I'm sitting in Bombay and I want to order some component from Bihar, it's a huge headache, in terms of the complexities of the tax system. You will be moving to a world where it makes very little difference whether I'm buying from the town next door or whether I'm buying
That's
from
the biggest
Bihar.
advantage of this.
That is the great advantage.
Okay,
for
but everybody
everybody.
agrees that it's going to be a big positive thing which will happen to this country. But before it happens, there will be a lot of complications which will arise and which will have to be tackled. I'm sure there will be many more discussions on this before we will see the rollout of the GST. Thanks to all my guests. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue, the big picture, same time.